Hello and namaskar everyone. This is Salish and today I'm going to talk about one of the important events that happened in Australian history. So back Nepal, when I was at my country, so I used to think when I used to think of Australians, I used to think European-like people or American-like people. So I mean to say white people. So when I came here, so like before I came here in 2017. When I saw people here, they were like majority of people were like American-like people or European-like people. So I mean to say white people. So I also came to saw a lot of people. They were like Aboriginal people. So I began to think about who are they people? Who are they people? And so why have they begun to have mistrust with non-indigenous people, white people? I used to wonder time and again. But slowly after researching and after going to college, I came to know that they were the first Australians in this land. I mean, they were the first people. So I also came to know that they have a history of like 77,000 years in this land. So there have been a lot of things. They had gone through a lot of things. That is why they have like mistrust and a lot of negative things towards non-indigenous people. One of the event I'm going to talk about today, and the event is not other than Coniston massacre. So let's begin with Coniston massacre. So before starting my presentation, I would like to do acknowledgement to the country. So I'm currently at Stratfield, and I would like to bow down to Wangal people of Stratfield. And we acknowledge and celebrate the contribution of living culture that has unique role in these regions. And we also acknowledge elders, past and present, as well as our emerging leaders of tomorrow, and thankful for their wisdom and guidance as we walk through their footsteps. Let's begin. Coniston massacre. The Coniston massacre was the last documented massacre of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander in the history of Australia. The violent conflicts between Indigenous Australian and non-Indigenous white settlers were on a rise due to cultural and worldview differences, due to which massacre had occurred in several places in Australia. The Coniston massacre being the last one and ending the murderous era in the history of Australia. Despite the abundance of oral evidences from Aboriginal Australians, the Coniston massacre was not investigated and culprits were never brought to judicial system. So what happened and where did it happen? So the Coniston massacre took place in 1928. So following an incident where white settler named Frederick Brooke was killed by Aboriginal people at the Coniston station in 1928, the reprisal killing took over a period of 2 to 3 weeks across a wide area near the Alice Spring, in which at least 28 deaths were recorded. However, it is now believed by historians that as many as 200 men and women were killed in that massacre. So what did the event come about? So I mean to say, what happened after the actual event happened? The Coniston massacre sparked following the murder of a local dingo trapper named Frederick Brooks, so who was killed because of the cultural misunderstanding between Brooks and Aboriginal people, in which he was held accountable for breaching Waripili marriage law. So Waripili is one of the ethnic group of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in Australia. After the incident of this murder, a reprisal party was formed consisting of both Aboriginal and civilian, led by Constable George Murray. And in an event called Coniston Massacre, several Aboriginal people were killed. So who was involved? So like I said, 3 Aboriginal groups, Walipili, Amateur, and Ketete, along with non-indigenous white settlers who were against each other, and police were involved in this event. So the relevance of this event for social workers and a common man, we should know. We should be knowing that why are they behaving in such a way, even in 21st century? So why don't they trust white people and also other non-indigenous people? Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have higher exposure to racism, trauma, stressful events in day-to-day lives compared to non-indigenous counterparts. The impacts of colonization at that time and repressing practices and policies imposed over Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples for years have underpinned the relationship between social work practitioners and or any other white settlers with mistrust, anger, hatred, and fear, and has created a divide between these two groups. Even though the history of massacre in Australia ended a long time ago, with this massacre, Coniston massacre being the last massacre, the consequence of such events has had far-reaching effects on the lives of Aboriginal people even today, which has made it difficult for them to trust any non-indigenous person. So here I'm talking about two groups. Actually, one is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and other I'm talking about non-indigenous people. So the people of Waripili, Amateur, Ketete region who lost at least one of their family member in the Coniston massacre lived a dreadful life afterwards, and after that event, that led mistrust among Aboriginal and white settlers. As social workers are the agents of social change, it is responsible to develop a collaborative relationship with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander to help them overcome a devastating outcomes of intergenerational trauma that they have. I mean to say, they have this trauma since a long time ago, like their grandparents have, great-grandparents have trauma, and after that trauma, along with the trauma, got transmitted towards their offspring. So devastating outcomes of intergenerational trauma that they faced for years. Through application of social work skills, values, and ethics, social workers can ensure a strong, resilient, and cultural responsive practices directed towards the welfare of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people. Social work practitioners in any area of practice are informed by a broad knowledge base, and knowledge has always been an important factor for social practitioners in better understanding of problems of their clients. In this regard, social workers working with Aboriginal must be informed about the histories, particularly about the impact of colonization, policies and practices on the contemporary experiences of indigenous individuals and communities, so that they can get useful insights on how to develop and deliver services to them in ways that are culturally respectful towards Aboriginal people. Social workers who are aware about indigenous histories involved in culturally responsive practice, which incorporates social strength-based and action-oriented approach to ensure cultural safety in every interaction with Aboriginal. A culturally responsive social worker moves beyond simply acknowledging and understanding of histories and experiences of Aboriginal to reflect and critically assess their own identity, values, and beliefs to challenge racism at personal and institutional level. Those are all the things I'm telling you, because Aboriginal people in this country are facing a lot of racism, and a lot of people are locked inside the jail for like limited crimes. I mean, the smallest of the smallest crimes. So after hearing this incident about Coniston massacre, I hope all the people in Australia and also social worker who know something about the history and why they are in so much of stress every time and why they have so much regret towards us. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to me.